A long braid, brown shorts, a black holster, 2 pistols hanging from the belt, and a small backpack. It doesn't take much to immediately recognize the one who will become a true icon of the gaming world. Lara Croft is the main character of the very lucrative Tomb Raider license, created in 1996 and still active today, which has no less than 14 main games. This British archaeologist travels the world armed with their 2 pistols in search of magical artifacts, but over the years, Tomb Raider has become a cross-media universe and franchise made up of video games, films, novels, comics, and commercials. Before we begin today's evolution video, make sure to leave a like, subscribe, and hit in that bell. We really appreciate all the support we can get. But for now, enjoy the evolution of Tomb Raider. It all started in 1996, the first Tomb Raider game, developed by Core Design. It was released for the PC, PlayStation, and Sega Saturn, and was one of the first games to feature a woman in the leading role, although there was Samus from the Metroid series who appeared 10 years earlier. Lara Croft is seen by its designers as a sort of feminine Indiana Jones. She was originally supposed to have a whip and a hat, and her name was Laura Cruz. Nevertheless, the name of Lara Croft was chosen in order to make it more British. This was one of the first games with a third-person character who runs around in a 3D environment. The players can explore numerous tombs, solve puzzles, and face enemies in action phases. The confrontation between Lara and a T-Rex has become a classic moment. Seeing the character on screen allows players to both admire and engage in a relationship. Toby Gard, the creator of the character, had the idea of making the main character a woman in order to create in the male player the need to protect her. At the time, however, the representation of different gender characters was linked to the technical capabilities of consoles. That is why with the graphics engine of the 1990s, Lara's femininity is essentially represented with her bust size and long hair, while her famous shorts are meant to emphasize her athleticism. The technological limits nevertheless pushed the developer to sacrifice her famous braids, which were only added in the next games. But the richness of Lara Croft's character is not limited only to her physical prowess. Indeed, she becomes the first avatar with an official identity card, background, place, and date of birth. She is the daughter of Lord Henshinley Croft, a wealthy English aristocrat who died when she was 18, and Lady Angeline Croft, born February 14, 1968. After graduating in languages at the age of 21, she lived a relatively normal life until one day her plane crashed deep in the Himalayan mountains. She was the only survivor of the accident, so she had to rely on herself to survive in a hostile environment. This experience will turn the course of her life upside down and completely change her character, as Lara abandons the world of nobility to choose a solitary life full of adventure and the unexpected. In the next games, the devs have gone to great lengths to make Lara more realistic, with advancements in technology helping. Besides the appearance of her famous braids, her body became more detailed with the addition of polygons, while she was given new weapons, new outfits, and new moves. The exploration, puzzle, action formula repeated itself in Tomb Raider 2 and 3, as well as the final revelation, and in the footsteps of Lara Croft. Players enjoy the action approach around a strong female character with almost supernatural abilities. Some variations were made in some of these games. In the footsteps of Lara Croft, for example, they grouped several stories together as a kind of anthology. The Dark Angel has tweaked the formula somewhat by placing the story in a darker, more urban world, as Lara must solve a murder she's accused of in the city of Paris. But the game wasn't received well by critics. Still, according to Alexander Sorel, Lara Croft has changed the representation of women in video games. Initially, the character in Tomb Raider was not seen as the focal point of the game by the development team, because it was the technology of the game that was unforgettable. Lara Croft has succeeded in asserting herself and above all in leaving her status as a ruthless anti-hero without empathy, acting only out of self-interest. It was thanks to Hollywood and the first film adaptation in 2001 directed by Simon West that Lara became a heroic figure. The film puts Lara in the spotlight, with Angelina Jolie in the lead role. From this point onwards, future games have therefore continued along the path taken by Hollywood. In 2006, Core Design gave way to Crystal Dynamics, and so they released the first episode of a new trilogy. The game is not seen as a reboot, but more of a new take on a modified canon. Developers based their work on 3 fundamental principles. First of all, the fluidity of movement, to show Lara as an agile gymnast. They combined rolls, wheels, flips, and other movements. The introductory cutscene immediately sets the tone, as Lara climbs in Bolivia without any mountaineering equipment, performs an impressive jump, lands herself with one hand before pulling herself up with a purely aesthetic acrobatic figure. Secondly, showing Lara's intelligence, not only with her puzzles, but also the use of her gadgets. The game introduces physics into the puzzle, and Lara is now equipped with binoculars that allow you to analyze the environment and also a grappling hook. The third principle was appealing to a wider audience. The game had to be unique and still entertaining. Square Enix bought the game and launched a reboot of the saga in 2013. The game made Lara more human and more vulnerable in order to make it easier for the players to identify with her, and therefore it had to be made as credible as possible. In the game, Lara Croft is stranded on a hostile island following a shipwreck and will have to face warlike castaways. Putting the game behind closed doors created a sense of dread. What this game did is take her two iconic pistols away for a more primitive weapon that will become just as iconic, the bow. After this shipwreck, she was stripped of all her privileges and all her gadgets, which made her more vulnerable. Rise of the Tomb Raider introduces us to a more confident heroine in search of a treasure her father could never find. While examining his writings, she discovers that he was not the eccentric lunatic as people say. He was actually a visionary mocked for having different views from others. In the middle of Siberia, Lara must more than ever call on all her resources to survive in an environment that offers no gifts. The gameplay now includes crafting, meaning that the player must collect materials like wood, mushrooms, and oil in order to craft ammunitions or bandages to heal themselves. The protagonist also has to fight against those who wish to see her fail, like her stepmother Anna, as well as those who wish her death, like the dreaded Trinity. Unlike the 2013 game, where she had no choice and had to fight to survive, Lara here takes up arms to succeed and unravel the mysteries buried for centuries. Thus, the reboot to the series opts for a darker and realistic approach to the character. The third episode's narrative director, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, explained in an article that in the first episode, Lara was just trying to survive and had no experience. In the second, she discovered the organization behind her father's assassination, and she was growing stronger. And now, she faces her mistakes and must act intelligently to master the environments in which she operates. In 2018, Shadow of the Tomb Raider was released, and we saw Lara tame nature and become one with it in order to survive. For example, she covers her body in mud for camouflage. She crafts weapons and hides in the jungle, as well as mastering the culture and history of the ancient civilization she faces in order to progress. She began her story in 2013, alone and scared, to eventually become the embodiment of fear, even if it means hurting innocent people in her path. We rarely see any female characters who are as strong as Lara, and until these past years, we almost didn't have any. And of course, when I think of strong female characters who have good storylines, I think of Faith from Mirror's Edge, Samus from Metroid, and of course, Ellie from The Last of Us. So which one of these Tomb Raider games did you play? Did you play all of them, or just the latest releases? Tell us in the comments which one of these games left a mark on you. And of course, if you enjoyed the video, consider leaving a like, subscribing, and hitting that bell. By doing so, you can help the channel grow, and of course, you're gonna get a lot more videos.